Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Happy New Year, everybody. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday season, and sorry for the lack of videos lately. We just kind of took a little break for the holidays. We went to a Packer game, that was really fun, and yeah, but anyways, we're back working on some cars again, and I got a four-door Honda Civic here. Customer dropped off, and it has pretty much all eBay parts on it, and I wanted to kind of show any issues with the eBay parts and what we're gonna be able to get out of it on the dyno. This guy doesn't really have super lofty horsepower goals or anything like that, so this eBay kit is great for starters. But you know, if you have an addictive personality like myself, or you want a lot of horsepower, or you're never satisfied kind of thing, and you always want to keep going up, maybe the eBay stuff really isn't the best, and there's another step up. There tends to be another step up from the typical eBay turbo kit stuff, and that step up is typically huntertuned.com. So you guys know I'm selling turbos, wastegates, blow-off valves, and a ton more stuff coming soon to make your turbo kit even better. So stay tuned and subscribe to my channel, guys, if you're new here. Like the video if this is helpful at all, and enjoy this eBay turbo kit car that we're going to go over right now.
You're going to have to blur that out because I accidentally showed it.
Alright, so under the hood of this little EK Civic, we have a V18B non-VTEC. So this is the non-VTEC V series, comes in the Integra LS, and they swapped it into this 96 to 2000 Honda Civic. And they put the typical run-of-the-mill eBay turbo kit on it. 38 millimeter wastegate and a 50 trim turbo with a cast log exhaust manifold. This kit usually works for stuff about 10 pounds-ish. Anything more than 10 pounds, they tend to create more back pressure than horsepower. So, like I said, guys just wanting to get a couple more horsepower off of their stock motor. Say this motor makes 150 to 160 horsepower stock. If he wants to make 250, maybe even 300 horsepower on something like this reliably is doable. Anything more than that, you'd want to definitely upgrade your turbo manifold especially. Wastegate, turbo manifold we covered. He also has a boost controller on it, which this is the typical eBay boost controller. This is a manual
Zip ties included?
Boost controller. Actually, I think it does come with zip ties. And it's just a little bleed valve which allows air to escape out of it. I think that's how this one is set up. I don't usually run these because they typically either make all the boost or none of the boost. So it's better off just to run like a different wastegate spring, or get a good boost controller like something like a Hallman. So this is a Hallman style controller where it has the feed coming in, it pushes on a spring, and then exits to the wastegate. This style comes into this T, goes out of the T to the wastegate, and then bleeds off a certain amount of pressure through the top, which is controlled through this. It's kind of complicated. You can do the same thing just running a plastic T to get more boost than whatever the wastegate spring is at. You know, you can get those at AutoZone. So like something like this is doing almost the same exact thing as how this is set up currently. So I feel like this would be more reliable than this eBay controller, but it does work nonetheless. If that's all you got, by all means, go for it. So other than that, the oil feed lines that come with the eBay kits, these oil feed lines tend to suck because they are fixed on one end, and then they have a swivel head on the other side that is going down into the turbo, way down in here. So you can see it has a 90 going down onto the turbo right here, and then they come with these little restrictor plates and stuff like that. Typically these restrictor plates that come with these turbos work okay for low boost and stuff like that, but as soon as you start cramming on these things, they tend to get hot and they're under oiled with the restrictor they come with. What I usually do on any journal bearing turbo, whether it's eBay or VS Racing or whatever, I like to run a 3AN feed line -3, so that's like brake line fitting, and run just that with no restrictor or anything like that, and that proves to work the best in my opinion. If you run -4 with no restrictor, it's too much oil. -3 is perfect for journal bearing turbos. Like I said, the restrictor that they send with these eBay turbos, they tend to be restricted for like a ball bearing, which these $100 eBay turbos are not ball bearing. So I don't know why they started including, you know, those restrictor plates for a journal style turbo. It doesn't make much sense to me. So if you want to have a fail-safe system, ditch the eBay oil line that they give you and get a 3AN fitting and hose or oil line. And I'm going to show you an example quick of why these oil lines suck.
What are you doing in there, Bob?
Alright, so I can't actually find one of those eBay oil lines here at the shop, probably because I throw all of them out. But if you want to get an idea, I have a little single cam motor here, and I'll show you the issue that they typically have. Say if we're looking at the back of the block here, I know this is the front, but just for demonstration purposes, if we take that oil feed line that comes with the eBay kit, it has a 1/8" pipe thread that's fixed to the oil line, which means that when you try to thread it into the block, whether it's on your oil filter sandwich adapter plate or if you tap the oil pressure sensor, when you thread it in, the whole line spins with the fitting that you're trying to put into the block. So when you're trying to do that under the intake manifold, like you do on a Honda, way down in here, when you're trying to thread that in, the hose ends up getting kinked, and I've seen it numerous times where guys come in with their eBay kit and they come for a dyno tune, that this oil line ends up getting kinked somewhere, shape or form, unless you're really careful with it when you're installing it. So that's just a big no-no. You want to try to get a line that has a swivel on both ends and they're not fixed to the line. Roxy even tells you what to do. So that's kind of the main concerns with the eBay kits that I've seen for Hondas especially. Intercooler piping and couplers and clamps and stuff like that. I've ran that stuff on my 1,000 horsepower Mustang and plenty of 10-second Hondas in the past. So the eBay intercooler piping and couplers and intercoolers and stuff like that, as long as the core is the size that you need for the intercooler, they all tend to work great. eBay blow-off valves, they work fine, and everything like that. So moving on, this car has a kind of like a dryer vent style intake here. It's like the flexible air intake hose. This stuff can work okay, but tends to collapse on itself if you run enough boost. So this is something to keep in mind. Might affect horsepower, it might not, but just something to keep in mind. Moving on with this car, we're just kind of going through it before we dyno it, and I figured I'd spit some information while we're here. So this is also running an eBay 3-bar map sensor. So there's no brand name on this map sensor at all. It just says 3-bar on it. So typically the eBay map sensors I try to stay away from. I either run a stock map sensor, which a stock sensor from Honda will read like 11 or 12 pounds of boost. Or I just jump up to a Speed Factory 4-bar sensor because those have been proven to be the most reliable map sensor out there. You got to spend a little bit of money on the map sensor, but I've never had a bad one, and they work reliably every time. So if you're trying to run more than like 12 pounds of boost, definitely get like a Speed Factory 4-bar and don't rely on these cheaper eBay map sensors. Another thing that this car has is a set of eBay 550cc injectors. So these injectors, believe it or not, seem like they're okay, but a lot of times I've done a lot of testing personally on cheap eBay injectors, and the flow match just isn't very even or close. So it's always best to make sure when you are buying a set of eBay or cheaper injectors that you at least make sure that they're flow matched. You can pick up a set of injectors on huntertune.com, and they are all flow matched, and I include a flow sheet with my injectors that I sell. So if you guys are in the market for a set of cheaper injectors, definitely check out huntertune.com. I wouldn't really trust a lot of these eBay injectors. Another reason why I wouldn't is because these are like an older technology style injector. If you guys see like RC 550s or RC 1000s, they have a fat body to them, and it's just an old injector internal, and there's a lot better styles of like solenoids and stuff inside the injector nowadays than there used to be. RCs used to be like the hot ticket that everybody would run, but now a lot of stuff is moving to like a skinnier injector body and stuff like that that tends to work a lot better than these larger fat style injectors. So this is what I'm talking about here with the fat style injectors. They're like a factory injector or like a DSM injector. So yeah, and then these are also like eBay wiring adapters, which I don't usually like to run because I have seen a few times now these style injector adapters, these wires will actually pull out of the connection pin here and cause issues. So what I sell is a fail-proof style. It's just a solid pin. There's no wire in between to fail. So if you're looking for an injector adapter, I would definitely look at like the fail-proof style or solid pin design injector adapter before you get something like this with the wire in between. And another thing you guys always want to check when you're putting injectors in your car is to make sure if it's low or high impedance. And on these, if we unplug them, we can actually just take a multimeter between the pins on the injector to see if they read 12 ohm or 2 ohm. If they're a 2 ohm injector, we need to run a resistor box, which a resistor box pretty much allows the injector to run through, or it allows the ECU to run through a set of resistors before it hits the injector, which helps with stability of the injector. If you try to run a low impedance injector on a high impedance computer, you can burn out the computer. You'll get a lot of fluctuation, misfires, stuff like that. And vice versa. If you try to run a high impedance on a low, you'll have issues as well. So just a good rule of thumb is just see if your car has a resistor box. On a Honda, they're usually wired in over on this side of the car into the injector wiring. On an EG. On an EK, it's a little bit different. I don't even think I've ever wired a resistor box on an EK. But you pretty much have to tie in a resistor to each individual injector wire. So if you don't have a resistor box on a Honda from 92 to 2000, you'll have a high impedance system. And typically Hondas from 91 and older had resistor boxes stock. And to delete them, you just got to unplug the resistor box and tie all the wires together. I have some videos explaining this stuff, but I know not everybody can watch all of the videos and run through all of my babbling and shit like that. You don't have the attention span, I understand. So in this video, I'm just trying to explain a lot of this stuff and go through the car with you guys. So we're going to get a multimeter here, and we're going to check and see if these injectors are high impedance or low. So these injectors are actually reading a little higher than 12, like 15.5, 15.3, 15.4. We're gonna test another one here and see if it's the same. (15.5), 15.6. So these are a high impedance injector. I'm just gonna test another one just to make sure that they're all about the same. Come on, stay on the pin. Yeah, 15.5 or so. So they will not require a resistor box. But just for example, I'm going to pop the hood on my Integra and test the resistance on the Hunter Tune ones and show you that they are a little bit lower than that 15. I don't know what the difference is, but typically a high impedance is going to read like 12-ish, not 15.5.
Ooh, this is the spot, huh? Nice.
Alright, so let's test one of the Hunter Tune injectors quick and see where that's at. Yeah, almost right at 12. 11.6, 11.7. So, yeah, just something to look out for, I guess.
Why is 15 bad?
I don't know.
So why would you
I'm sure
look out
somebody in
for
the
it?
comments would tell us. I just feel like good high impedance injectors are around 12, and if they're higher than that, maybe there's like more internal resistance or something, which probably isn't good. I have no idea. I feel like it's just like the old style injectors. The solenoid's a lot bigger maybe, and that just has more resistance. I have zero clue right now, so if that doesn't make sense, just leave it down in the comments and let me know what you guys think. All right, so while we're still under the hood, I am going to fix an issue here. When we are turbocharging our Honda, we want to make sure that we're not blowing boost into the crankcase. So this PCV system, this is a PCV valve, and this is the intake manifold, which is going to have positive boost pressure blowing the PCV valve. So what I usually do is you can check the valve, the PCV itself, which I am getting a little bit of air blowing past this, and you can imagine on 10 pounds of boost, it's just going to be exacerbated. So we want to make sure the valve is free, but what I typically do on these things is I just run the PCV just straight to the ground or run it to a catch can, because you want to be able to vent the excess crankcase pressure out of this thing, because we're adding more cylinder pressure with the turbo kit, and if we have our PCV hooked up, it's just not going to be able to vent off that excess crankcase pressure. So an oil catch can, or at least deleting the factory PCV system and just venting it to the atmosphere is a lot better for the motor than running it through the intake how you would stock. So I'll run this just like off to the ground, and then I'll plug this port off because this is now a big vacuum and boost leak. So I just get these little vacuum cap plugs from the parts store, and I'll grab the right size, and we will plug this guy off. Make sure it's a good snug fit, which this one is going on. You got to push it with some effort to get it on. That fits perfectly. We'll probably throw a little zip tie on that. And while we're at it, we are going to fix another boost leak. This car has an aftermarket throttle body. So this port right here, sorry for the heater noise guys, I apologize, but this port right here, although it's not a vacuum leak, it is a boost leak. So when the throttle is open and we're forcing air into the throttle body, this is going to let that boost just escape right out of that nipple. So we want to also plug this port off.
Snug like a bug.
Yep, so now we got that all plugged off. The two leaks that we were gonna have are probably all fixed now. This also does have the stock evap stuff still hooked up. You can leave a lot of this, and I don't usually see issue, but like this little purge solenoid and stuff.
We ran out of time.
Oh. So this is like the evap purge solenoid. You can take this and throw it in the garbage and then just plug off the vacuum ports. That's what I normally do. Or you can leave it hooked up. I don't think it'll really hurt it to leave it hooked up, but that will tend to add boost into your fuel tank if you leave the evap stuff hooked up. So I think they're configured in a way though that they're closed normally, so I don't think that will actually hit the gas tank, but you do have a charcoal canister down there that might fill up with pressure if you leave some of the evap stuff hooked up, but in this case, low boost, I'm not super worried about it. All right guys, so we got the car up in the air now, and I'm gonna talk about some of the parts from the bottom side. Getting off topic a slight bit here is these are the eBay lower control arms and tie brace and stuff like that. And you can see here, this car came in for a dyno tune, and this bolt is almost backed all the way out. So if this were to fail and fall out, this control arm would drop and the tire would start to do some... The rear tire would start to do some funny stuff and possibly cause a crash or an accident. So I've been doing a lot more inspections on cars before I tune them because I don't want something failing on my watch, and there's a reason that I can count on one hand how many failures I've had on the dyno. And it's because probably I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, but I want to make sure that everything is okay before, you know, we spin 130, 140 miles an hour on the dyno. Even though the rear isn't going to have an issue, if I had not caught this and the guy would have, you know, been excited and did some highway pulls after he picked his car up and this bolt fell out, he could have put this thing in the wall or something. So it's always kind of a risk that we take, you know, especially me doing this as a job. I just try to go over the car as much as I possibly can, and I've been turning away a lot of work lately because of stuff that just is going to take too much time versus the amount of money I'm getting paid, kind of thing. And I don't want the liability or responsibility to, you know, have something happen after it leaves my shop. So we'll get this bolt fixed. This car has a 2 1/4 inch exhaust, which will be a little bit of a limiting factor for horsepower outcome, but it is nice and quiet. This is just an eBay exhaust. For the Hondas, they do fit fairly well, and you can get away with making about 300 horsepower or so with something like this. If you want more power on less boost and less back pressure and stuff like that, I obviously always recommend a full 3-inch exhaust. So moving on to the eBay downpipe. So this is an eBay downpipe that goes up to the turbocharger. It has a flex pipe in the middle. A lot of times these downpipes do not fit the greatest because whoever designs them clearly doesn't have a car to base the downpipe off of, for the eBay downpipes that is. And you can see here, this is one issue that I'm running into with this car is I went to go tune it and I realized it didn't have a wideband air fuel gauge installed, and it did not even have a sensor. It has a bung for the sensor up top here, but you can see if we put an O2 sensor in this spot, it would hit the axle. So we can't even put a O2 sensor here because the axle is in the way. This O2 bung needs to be farther back on this specific downpipe. It needs to be like right here or so the sensor has room and not hit anything. This test pipe also has an O2 bung, but it's facing down. So kind of another issue is if we put a sensor here, the sensor would collect a lot of exhaust moisture facing down like that, and it would hit the ground and it would ruin the sensor almost immediately because it would be rubbing on the ground. So that is one thing I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna drill this downpipe before I tune it, and I'm gonna weld in a O2 bung in a proper position. So that's just one thing to look out for on the eBay downpipes. A lot of times you buy all these eBay parts and you spend more money on fabricating the parts that don't fit. So you gotta just take that in mind when you do buy a cheap kit. Just remember that you're probably gonna spend more time and more money fixing the stuff that doesn't fit. So moving on to the oil drain line here, they did put a bung in the oil pan. All right, so you can see the oil return line here. They put a bung in the pan, and this is probably one of those ones that's either tapped or it has a nut on the back side of it. And then you can put a 10 AN fitting off of the pan, and then your stainless braided line right there going up to the turbo to another 10 AN fitting. Now the AN lines and stuff like that you get with these eBay kits, they're pretty decent. I've used them and haven't had any issues. So the return line side of things shouldn't be a big deal as long as you can fit it without kinking. The return line, you want to make sure that your return line off of the turbo is gravity fed into the top side of the oil pan. And you're not going uphill with the return line, causing the oil to pool up in the low spot of the line. You want to make sure that it has a downward angle into the pan the entire travel of the return line. So yeah, that's about it, guys. This thing should be almost ready to tune. I'm gonna just kind of double check some stuff. The fit and finish of how they set the intercooler piping up here is a little concerning. You can see this coupler here is you know, like this pipe is way out and this pipe is way in kind of thing. So the coupler is like, you know, like this. It's got like a little bit of a taper kind of to it. And then the piping here, it looks like they tried to smush it in order to clear the radiator support and the downpipe. But everything else looks okay. You can also see here, this is a common spot for the intercooler piping to rub. Go up a little. Right here you can see that the pipe is already starting to rub on this mount. And then up higher, above where my finger is, there's another rub spot on this this motor mount. So eventually you're gonna rub a hole through the piping. This is really common, like I said, so just watch out for these specific spots. You're gonna rub a hole through the intercooler pipe eventually, and then you're not gonna have any boost, and you're not gonna know where to turn. So just always remember that. At least try to put like some electrical tape on the pipe so it has another barrier to rub on. Sometimes it is tricky to get these piping kits to fit perfectly. Sometimes you gotta modify, you know, get different couplings, stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's pipe, you know, so it doesn't matter if it comes from eBay or, you know, Vibrant, in my opinion. Another thing too that I noticed, I don't know if I can add this into the previous video, but this turbo was actually ground down to fit the block, and then I believe they probably cut the block too. Yeah, they cut the crap out of that block down in there. So that's what all this shavings is all over the valve cover. So they're grinding away at the turbo to get it to fit. I usually put the turbos the other way, especially if you're not running AC. Like, there's no point in running it this way. So yeah, they had to grind the turbo to make it fit. I think that covers most of it. If you guys made it all the way to the end of this video, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel. We're going to be putting this car on the chassis dyno in one of the upcoming videos, and we're going to see what kind of power we can make with all these eBay parts. So stay tuned, and have a great night and a better tomorrow, guys. We will see you later. God bless.